Pero vamos a recibir con un aplauso bien fuerte al doctor Silvio Torres Saillant.
El mensaje va dirigido a los jóvenes y, quieras o no, los jóvenes dominicanos en los Estados Unidos, para ellos, su principal lengua de aprendizaje, de comunicación y de entendimiento, su lengua intelectual, es el inglés. The president of the Dominican American National Roundtable has done me the honor of asking me to address you on this majestic occasion with some words of exaltation prior to the screening of the Dominican List video, which will take place at the Hyatt as soon as we finish here. I believe Dr. Maria Teresa Montilla expects me to cheer you with a message of how great Dominicans are. Well, I'm afraid I might frustrate that expectation. You see, I don't think any of the peoples of the earth deserves to be called great wholesale. I believe only individuals can earn the rank of greatness. Populations, as collective entities, are usually complex collections of everything, including devils, saints, traitors, and heroes. Some years ago, at the University of Antioquia in Medellin, an Afro-Colombian colleague gave me an assessment of his people that has stayed with me for over 10 years. He said, in Colombia, the best you can find is the people. But the worst you can find is also the people. I can apply the same reasoning to my people and say, in my words, that Dominicans are just as bad as anybody else. They are not better than anybody else, but they're certainly not worse either. We should come to the defense of our people, our community, when we find them under siege, under attack, harassed by forces interested in depicting them wholesale as in a negative light, as if they were worse than anybody else and therefore deserved less respect. That is how I understand the issue of ethnic advocacy on behalf of Dominicans that I see the Dominican List engaging in. The Dominican List showcases an impressive array of individuals with extraordinary accomplishments and talents who have made enormous contributions in cities throughout the United States in areas ranging from education, law, health, politics, and sports to science, technology, and the arts. These individuals, mind you, represent only the tip of the Dominican iceberg. Many more have achieved outstanding feats in sites less reachable by the reporter's camera or the journalist's beat. They have re-energized neighborhoods which they found languishing. They have documented photographically the life of their community for 40 years, like Eduardo Hoberman has done. They have used their positions to advance the cause of justice, like Eduardo Paulino, a historian at Genjai College, has done, who is leading an effort to pay respects to the victims of the 1937 massacre on the border with Haiti. There is a website called Border of Light, inviting people to come to the border in October of this year to try to begin the healing process. They have taught the discipline of dance or athletics to youngsters after school, or used their ingenuity to create jobs when the country's economy did not provide them one, in street vending, sidewalk eateries, or artisanship, among others. The Dominican List, for the sake of experience, begins with those Dominicans whose stories are more accessible because their occupations have brought them into visibility. Still, one might ask, what motive the Dominican American National Roundtable and the National Dominican American Council might have for compiling and publicizing such a distinguished gathering, a list of such a distinguished gathering of remarkable people of Dominican ancestry. Among the many plausible reasons that come to mind, one strikes me as the most likely, perhaps even the one subsuming all others. People of Dominican descent in this country must still continue to engage in ethnic advocacy. Many of you know the story of the Dominican Studies Institute. Ramona Hernandez is now the dynamic leader of that institution, which has brought us visibility nationally and has helped us correct the record regarding Dominicans in the United States. When we came into the picture, some of us who began at the City University of New York, we found books and articles written by people who are not Dominicans about Dominicans. So they focus on Dominicans as birds of passage, people who were here, who arrived the other day and who were just planning their return home, and who basically spent their talents and their time and their resources just shuttling back and forth between the Dominican Republic and the United States. And we decided that we were going to do all we could to try to document the Dominican experience of Dominicans, the experience of Dominicans in the United States as a community, as an ethnic subsection of the American population. Our research revealed a story of Dominican presence in the United States that went back many more decades than scholars had accounted for. We took note of Dominicans settling in this land after the 1850s. The renowned Pedro Enriquez Ureña Diógenes, whom you mentioned, who arrived in New York City in 1901, spoke of the many Dominicans he found living in the building near Columbia University where he first made his residence. The wall of the U.S. Pavilion's theater during the 1939 World's Fair featured art by Francisco Rebajes, an artist who in 1922, at age 16, had arrived from Puerto Plata and settled in New York, where he became one of the first craftsmen jewelers in the city's Greenwich Village community before establishing a nationwide chain of stores with company headquarters on Fifth Avenue. The incomparable performance artist, poet, and teacher Josefina Baez years ago designed an exhibition called Dominicanas Dominicosas that included black and white photographs depicting family scenes of Dominicans in New York during the late 1930s. That was also the time when Rina P. Espaillat made New York City her home. At age 7, she relocated with her family from Washington, D.C., where they had been living before. As a student in New York City public schools, she excelled in English, astonishing her teachers with her poetic compositions in this newly acquired language. A teacher took the liberty of sending Rina's poems out to publishers, and by 1947, with publications to her credit, she had become an upcoming literary star. At the tender age of 16, she was inducted into the Poetry Society of America as the youngest poet ever to have received the honor. A superior American poet, the author of many award-winning poetry books, Rina today remains jovial and genial, enjoying the respect of poets and readers nationwide, including many in the New Formalist movement, who view her as a guiding light. I had the good fortune of attending a conference in Pennsylvania where the New Formalists met. These are basically writers, poets who believe in traditional English prosody, in the traditional poetic forms, as tools that are still valid in poetry. And they actually think of Rina as a kind of god